Right, new WoW game.
Yep.
Yeah.
There is a new World of Warcraft development, or new WoW Dev 3, a new build of something World of Warcraft, and no one knows what it is, but people are fairly sure it's going to be either Wrath of the Lich King Classic, which is reasonably exciting, especially if they come in with a lot of big changes, with the idea of the fixes they've applied to TBC, but maybe a bit better. Maybe it's just a couple of fixes to iron out the pain points that people don't remember that well. Or it's a 10.0, who knows?
Yeah. So anyway, there's this new, likely encrypted product endpoint called WoW Dev 3, found by Marleman, who is the proprietor of WoW.tools, which is, just a very cool place. Only go there if you're interested in data mining and model viewing, because I don't want to say everyone go there and, I just give the poor guy a bunch of traffic that overwhelms the server or whatever. But anyway, it's just great at, picking up, sleuthing all of these things. Yeah. And so he's saying here, for comparison, WoW Dev is sparingly used for mainline, e.g. 9x, while WoW Dev 2 is used for TBC Classic. Could be used for, a Wrath of the Lich King Classic, 10.0, or neither, something else. I think it's probably Wrath Classic or 10.0. As for a TBC Classic timing, I'm just trying to parse through when that would be, because generally it's a sort of a tick-tock, right, of we get a WoW X pack. Well, it has not been that. WoW X pack, yeah. Mainline WoW, Classic release, mainline WoW, Classic release. I guess with the difference being that now there is Season of Mastery and TBC. Yeah.
I imagine Season of Mastery doesn't super fall under their plans. I think that's a small team leading that, and maybe a small team that's just like, do whatever you want. Try to keep Classic alive.
Okay, so just to get my dates straight, 2018 was the launch of Classic. Summer 2018, right?
Oh my god, that's so
Or is it summer 19?
It would have been 19, right?
Yeah, it was 19.
Because BFA was...
Yeah, so BFA was 18. Yeah. WoW Classic was 19. TBC Classic was 21.
Yeah.
I think a little bit earlier in the year.
Was it
tiny
June?
bit. Yeah, it was June instead of like a July, August.
Yeah.
Anyway, but just under 2 years. So it's 2022. We wouldn't be expecting Wrath of the Lich King Classic until 2023.
Yeah.
And they're not going to start the beta a year before.
Yeah.
And if they've got to the stage where they're what if WoW's next expansion? What if 10.0 is going to be in 2023? In which case they're trying to put out a classic to fill having a major WoW product release in 2022. I think that. I mean, would that mean that with TBC having some of the issues it had, they'd almost consider it a write-off and go next? But, I mean, Wrath Classic, that's the last one they can pull. I don't think Cataclysm is well enough remembered to do a Cata Classic, though MOP is well enough remembered to do a MOP Classic. Yeah. But I think more of the people who are playing MOP would still be willing to play Modern, whereas the Classic and TBC people would be some of the least willing to play Modern. With Wrath being a bit more in the middle, because Wrath obviously did, increase the accessibility of the game pretty drastically.
Wrath killed the game. You hear it here first. Yeah, it's awkward. It's hard to know. I personally feel like them running, because I imagine they'll like to speed up Classic a little bit, I think. Because I think TBC Classics maybe underperformed a bit. So I imagine, at least I think that's the way from what I generally see and hear from activity there.
That's the vibe I get. I have no idea about just the silent player count and what that would be.
Yeah, so I have a funny feeling that you're going to see TBC accelerated and a Wrath to fill the Shadowlands been out for 2 years.
In that case,
Please give us content.
Straight up question.
So, yep.
Shadowlands. How long is it going to be? When do you think 10x is going to be?
I think that everyone at Activision Blizzard is currently, as we speak, not metaphorically, literally, every executive, even the board of directors, are standing in John Haight's office. John Haight is, he's sort of leaning over Ian Hazacostas like this, protecting him from the executives whipping them to go fucking get 10.0 out. We need new World of Warcraft this year. Fucking do it. I feel like that's currently happening, and some of this new influence might allow them just enough time to go, no. Phil said, and he's going to be your boss soon, he said he wants more players playing World of Warcraft in 5 years. The only way we can make that possible is by giving 10.0 the time and mental energy it needs, because the director is doing 400 different things at once, and he's probably not able to do an exceptional job as director on 10.0 when he's also trying to direct the end of Shadowlands. You can't fly 2 planes at once, and he's trying to get Shadowlands to land. So I think that 10.0 is going to be probably, and this is going to sound brutal for people who are like, well, 9.2 for a year and a bit. I feel like they're going to rationalize it as we need to take one last big loss. Yeah. And we need a longer alpha and beta period because we need them. If we have a Shadowlands launch again, or even if 10.0 even like is almost out and is delayed again, it'll be a nightmare. So I generally feel we're going to get a 10.0 in well over a year.
So you're thinking,
I would suggest
well over a year.
I'm thinking March, April, between March and June next year.
You're thinking of Siege of Orgrimmar again.
I'm thinking of Siege of Orgrimmar again, but they'll rationalize it with an extended beta period. They'll push the beta earlier to more people so they can talk about MAUs and feel happy that way. Then they'll guarantee a Shadowlands sized launch again with loads of money coming in. And they'll have Wrath Classic, which will do better than TBC Classic because more people played Wrath. They'll have that to plug the gap towards the end of this year.
What if... Okay. 6.2 to 7.0. How long was that?
I couldn't tell you. Long time.
But here's what I'm getting at, though.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm getting at. Warlords of Draenor killed content.
Yeah.
Right? Warlords of Draenor, so I've heard it from a pretty trustworthy source, I guess. Yeah. The Shattrath raid, that was even mapped out at one point, I think, in a BlizzCon thing. But there was supposed to be a Shattrath raid, and it was cancelled. And there are quite a lot of other things for WoD. It's kind of sad, actually. WoD had a pretty good promise. They just never got to execute most of it. But anyway, with WoD, so they cut the patch. And one of the reasons that you could say that why Legion was so good is apparently I even heard that the artifact powers were heavily leaning on work they'd already done for Path of the Titans, which I'm not sure about that. I mean, maybe I suppose it could make sense. Who knows? But anyway, between Legion having historically a lot of pre-production because apparently they could have done either Legion or Warlords of Draenor after MoP, because of course Rathian teased Legion during the legendary campaign of MoP.
Yeah.
But anyway, they killed the patch, and Legion comes out with a whole bunch of stuff. Now, when I look at this current expansion, what do I see? Well, technically there are 2 major content patches, but Korthi is pretty budget.
Oh yeah, it's budget.
Now, Zereth Mortis is gorgeous.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they probably always knew they had to go to Zereth Mortis, right? Yeah. So I'm thinking that art was probably done a long, long time ago. And I suppose I'm thinking, like, if they cut a full patch from this expansion, I mean, that's months of development time saved.
Yeah.
And if they did that early enough, if they made that decision early enough into the development of Shadowlands when basically the writing was on the wall, could it be that the new expansion could come out toward the end of this year, but only because they made that sacrifice, and that now the challenge that they have is they're going to be launching the new expansion in a pretty crowded release time in Q4 of 2022, calendar 2022. I suppose November could make sense if they've cut a patch, but if that is true, then this, this would have to be 10.0.
Yeah.
So basically, if we find out that this is Wrath, then Wrath is definitely playing filler. But also, if it was Wrath, that would be quite, really quite bizarre and confusing, considering how much progression has been made. Like, they opened up Hyjal and BT recently in TBC.
Yeah.
Which means that they have ZA and Sunwell.
Yeah.
So one patch, and that'll probably be in like 3 months or 4 months, maybe 5.
Yeah, so they could push Sunwell by like late summer.
But if they do Sunwell by late summer, Sunwell's going to need a few months to live and breathe.
Yeah, well that's fine. Late summer, if we're talking say late July, then you drop Wrath in November. That's like.
I see. I'm interested about the people who are trying to catch up. Because not everybody's going to be playing out in a super bleeding edge way. And it's if they make those classic releases be so fast that they feel like almost throwaway, then they're kind of doing themselves in the long run.
Yeah, but is that worth it to buy time for 10.0? That's the thing.
They'll probably rationalize it as the most important thing.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I would. This is what I would do. That is exactly what I would do if I were in their situation, and I would say this to the developers on, I guess. Well, I'd say this to everyone in two specific caveats. One is that it comes after a significant period of ramp up time. Also, remember they're still hiring, I think, an associate game director, so they're still staffing up in Warcraft, and they've lost a lot of good staff. So I think 10.0 development is going to be a bit
somewhere
scuffed.
in Twitter someone say that had been filled.
Oh, cool. That'd be interesting.
Was it somebody like clicked in the thing in the career site and said it had been filled? I'm not 100% sure. Do not quote me on that.
Yeah, so I think one is they need to staff up a little bit because they clearly have some production issues, and some maybe they need to hire better leaders for the middle of the chain to keep everything flowing smoother, as opposed to more like actual groundwork being done. But the second part is this would need to be 10.0 that is extremely, extremely transformative. And I think
it has to evolve. Yeah.
And I think they're happy to do that based on 9.1.5 and 9.2. I think 9.2.5 will be the proof in the pudding there a little bit. Where if they can do something transformative for 9.2.5, and also NetSoccer, I think it was NetSoccer had a really good point saying, all time walking Inc. 9.2.5. That's something I brought up a couple weeks ago where I was saying they could buy a lot of time for 10.0 if they go for here we're reviving all this content for 9.2.5. If they can mage tar the challenge modes for WoD, if they can mage tar the mop challenge modes, if they can time walk all that stuff, bring it back and highlight it effectively, and then just run the event schedule really, really, really aggressively, then they could have a 9.2.5 that they could promise leadership that will have decent retention. And I imagine it likely will. If they go for, here's do any M plus from the 3 expansions of M plus you like. Here's all the raids that are, cycling through nicely enough. I think they could build a decent amount with that. And then Wrath to buy more time, and then they could have a properly, fully transformative 10.0. Some of this might be copium in terms of hoping for that. But I think there is a way to thread the needle of giving over a year pure development time on 10.0. Otherwise, it's just going to be Shadowlands but a bit better. And I think World of Warcraft cannot have a Shadowlands but a bit better. I think it really needs a World of Warcraft is back.
Which is what Legion kind of said.
They will need to do that to reach good peaks again. I think they can go with Shadowlands but good, and then have a lot of players come back and stick around. But if they want to be World of Warcraft again, if they want to stand tall among other MMOs, they need to give 10.0 a long time and revitalize why people love World of Warcraft existing.
Yeah, I think there's one experiential thing that could modify what you're saying. It could be Shadowlands, but better. Yeah. Like a real good chunk better. Like I don't mean a tiny bit better. I mean, it still is clearly a game by the same team, but it really is better.
Yeah.
If it was that from a top level design perspective, but it had good lore and a theme that resonated with people, I think that would do most of the work. Yeah. I think it's hard to overstate how much the theme, the setting, and the story of Shadowlands put people off. Not because everyone cares about the story, but there was undeniably something about classic Azeroth that, people didn't have a clue what the lore was. They just knew, I'm doing the thing with the bandits in the place. Yeah. They didn't really know the deep lore. But Blizzard successfully crafted the fantasy world that, you didn't need to know all the lore of. You didn't need to know all the details. It was just nice to be in.
Yeah.
And I think Shadowlands got away from that a little bit. A good bit, a lot, actually. But if the next expansion was to really just feel like Warcraft again, feel like we're home again, I don't think it would need to have all the bells and whistles that I would want. That said, player housing, please.
Yeah. So
Or guild halls, please. Or order halls, please.
see, that's the thing.
Give me a big house!
I think for any of those transformative features, 10.0 will have to be a long way away. I don't think they can make those, and I don't think they can make new transformative horizontal stuff and also make the existing stuff good without a lot of time. And there's one other caveat here, which is every other time World of Warcraft has lost players and had to get them back, World of Warcraft has lost the players and they've been a little bit adrift. That's not the case anymore. World of Warcraft is now facing the strongest competition it ever has in its entire history. Games like Lost Ark, which would have, that would have come out, say that came out in the mid-2000s. A couple of World of Warcraft players would have drifted over. But at that time, Eastern MMOs didn't have the sensibilities nor the strength to succeed in the West. Now they do. So now you're competing with Lost Ark. Obviously Lost Ark will, it'll fade off from the from the million players it's getting every day. That's going to fall off over time for sure, but it's going to have a solid base. And when they release new content, a lot of those players will keep coming back because that's the method they go for. FF14 has now taken a lot of players and is likely taking a lot of players for good, which means so many World of Warcraft players will now be thinking about FF every expansion. Every patch they'll be like, oh fuck, we could go there. So I think World of Warcraft has, it's no longer a big fish, small pond. It's now medium fish in a pretty big pond. Yeah. I think, especially with this year.
And also, FF and Lost Ark are attacking two of their player profiles.
Yeah.
Lost Ark is trying, it's kind of more attacking the Mythic Raiders, the key pushers.
Yep.
The people who maybe are also interested in Diablo and PoE. Yeah. FF is actually still able to take some of those, but probably not as a main game that they play all the time because FF doesn't have really the quantity of the raid bosses and stuff. Yep. But FF is absolutely going to take I don't mean the RPers, but the people who just want a cozy fantasy world MMO to be in.
Yeah, the people who want
FF's assaulting that pretty hard.
The people who want to play in a world as opposed to the people who want to do a job in a world. Or do a job in not a world, I guess.
Well, a job in the most recent patch zone.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And then also, I completely forgot. Someone there mentioned the Riot MMO.
Oh,
that's on the horizon, and they're going to be if they're not talking about being afraid of that, they should be, because obviously, Ghostcrawler, responsible for depending on who you listen to, responsible for killing World of Warcraft or saving it. But
a lot of people look back at MoP fondly.
Yep, people look back at MoP fondly. MoP is where a lot of FF14 took its inspiration, and look how much people are going at F14 going, wait, that's Mr. Benaria, can we have that back, please? And I think history will prove a lot of Ghostcrawler's direction right and design right, and Riot are more than anything else, the cultural juggernaut of the planet. Riot make what Blizzard used to be look like little babies, basically, because World of Warcraft, maybe it's a different world, but World of Warcraft at its very peak used to have celebrities do TV ads in a South Park episode, and now Riot are the people going, oh yeah, there's a TV show, by the way. It's just the most watched thing for all of November, or close enough to it, competing with things that are also cultural juggernauts, and they dropped it out of nowhere. It's an animated show, which doesn't do as well as other things, generally speaking, and it hits markets that World of Warcraft did fairly well in, but culturally they didn't really have much of a claw on. So it's if I were the leadership if I were John Haidt and people thinking what's next for Warcraft, I would think we need to gear up because the behemoth is coming for us and there's nothing we can do about it if we keep doing what we're doing. And I think that's why 10.0 needs to be extremely, extremely considered. And I think, as Dark Soul was saying, it needs to be very future-proofed, because that MMO, no matter what they do with that Riot MMO, all they have to do is set it in that world, make it a bit innovative, and based on, for all of the bullshit they've done to League of Legends at certain times, they've always been able to course correct. They've always been able to make a good game. Yeah. Literally half of all games and PC bangs in Korea are League of Legends games. Everything else takes it you know, it is effectively every other game in Korea is picking the bits of players that League of Legends doesn't eat up. And that's just going to continue. So I think everyone should be terrified of it, even though I don't know if it'll be good. No one knows if it'll be good, but it's going to be big and people are going to play it.
And it's going to be set in the same world as Arcane.
Yep.
Arcane's going to have a second season. Arcane's going to continue building stuff out.
Yep.
They're probably going to have more animated shows. They're
Yep.
probably going to have more there. They're building out that world in Ruined King.
Yep.
And all of these other projects that they're doing. So, yeah. And Riot, they have the money, they have the time, and also, and this is the bit we don't talk about enough, they're going to have the top talent.
Yep. I mean, how many people from Blizzard left for Riot because Riot were paying 3 times the money?
Yeah. it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And Riot evidently do not release shit when it ain't ready.
No,
I mean, maybe they'll release an update that the community doesn't like for League of Legends, but
Yeah.
when it comes to releasing a game, releasing a product, like, they don't fuck around, do they? They're willing to wait for it to be good. That's why it took them so long to put the S in Riot Games, but when they did, it was good.
Meanwhile, they're competing with a company that's happy to release Warcraft 3 Reforged and can't release Overwatch 2 or Diablo 4. And those
they're bleeding.
Yeah.
You're just landing the hits, man.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I'm not landing the hits. They've done this to themselves.
Thanks, Bobby.
And, and Riot are coming in for the kill. They've, it's especially ironic considering Riot built their name off League of Legends, obviously Dota. So them circling back around for the kill, however many years later, is kind of grim poetically.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Next up.
Actually, we're not done just yet, Michael. Because, of course, there's a little bit of this. If you go back to that, scroll down to the bottom. This might not be World of Warcraft at all.
Oh, shit. I forgot about that. Yeah, right. So, yes, there's some other things that this could be, right? Wrath of the Classic 10.0, the upcoming Warcraft mobile game that's linked to WoW, maybe, who knows. So the WoW Companion app does not use this type of CDN or patching, but the Hearthstone app does.
Yep.
So if the Warcraft app was, I mean, who the fuck knows, but whatever. It could be the Warcraft mobile app, which we know is coming out 2022. Could it be a WoW 2? No. But I'll put it in there for a joke. Or something completely different, which would catch us by surprise, which I would actually be genuinely surprised about because I just don't see that happening.
Yep. So it's a thing where Marlon pointed out, it doesn't use a CDN folder. It's a different thing. So it's something pretty unique to World of Warcraft, at least on this end. Maybe they're just changing up the process internally. That's a possibility. But at the same time, it's like, ooh, what's this? It's probably the mobile app, to be honest, or the mobile game. But
Was that or 10.0? Those are my bets.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I think they'd be willing to cut a patch and do the best expansion they can, Q4 2022, than they would be to let the live game languish for so long. But that would depend on how good a 0.25 patch is, in fairness. And if that was to have a whole bunch of time walking and loads of cool shit, maybe.